Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to theCUBE's live coverage of 5 Moments. We are here at Google Cloud Next 2026 in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight. I would like to welcome 2 great guests for this next segment. We have Ankur Manake. He is the Honeywell Forge Data and AI Leader at Honeywell. Welcome, Ankur.
Thank you.
And Dinesh Kabaleeswaran, Regional Sales Leader in North America at Quantiphi. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're going to be talking about how we've hit a point where AI is not a project anymore. We were all at the keynote hearing Thomas Kurian say we've really moved beyond the pilot phase, where it's becoming core to how businesses operate. Well, Honeywell is a complex business, which is a vast understatement. Can you talk a little bit, Ankur, about the moment where you realized that these incremental fixes to the legacy stack were not going to cut it anymore, and you needed to do something really transformational?
I think fundamentally it's very important to focus your wins towards driving outcomes. How do you want to use AI and capabilities thereof to drive outcomes, which basically help you define what decisions do you want to make differently than the way you have made them in the past. How does different element of the context, the domain, the tooling, and the entire operational environment come to play, and how do you want to rethink that to drive that decision making more effectively? And when you start thinking about that, that tells you, what information do you need to process as a human being, to make that right decision that drives that outcome, and then fundamentally, what data and AI capabilities do you want to actually instrument to be able to impact the way you do things and the way you need to do things differently overall. As you think about, the whole paradigm of AI transformation that the whole world is going through, keeping the fundamentals intact on how things work in an industrial environment, what is important and what's critical, and putting that into your solution context to drive that outcome is a good formula for us to use to drive those transformations in the technology space that we are in right now.
There's this idea of a legacy spaghetti, which I love. It's a colorful analogy. Describe what that looked like for your teams in their day-to-day workflows.
I think that's fundamentally what the industrial businesses have inherited or probably run with. We sit on heterogeneous systems right now, which of course generate different forms of data. We have time series data coming out from sensors, we have asset metadata that comes out in different shapes and form. You actually have unstructured data from different services and things like that. The important part is how do you homogenize these different bespoke data systems together to make it meaningful for us to essentially drive those outcomes is the complex part. And that is where the importance of domain expertise, combining with this technology competency becomes critical, that helps you achieve some of those goals that you're chasing.
A lot of companies just put AI on top as a layer, but you really, as you were saying, made this decision to rethink not just the technology, but also how your teams operate and function together in cross-disciplinary. Can you describe a little bit about that moment for you, about when it was that you said, we need to do things differently?
I think one of the fundamental part for us to imagine was that AI is not another thing. It is the way you want to start working going forward. And when you start thinking about AI's capability to help do your standard work, or improve the way you work, or improve the quality of decisions that you want to make, that's what gets the experts more involved in the solution itself. Versus, we have AI engineers coming in and selling you something and hoping that that sticks. That are great POCs, but if you really want to change the way you operate, change the way you want to work with those experts. You want to define the solution, define the new process, with these new capabilities with them, and then make it part of core standard work. How do you enhance or change some of the workflows that you may have today versus what you want to have with these new capabilities in place? Let's just imagine how things can run differently. And that's a very powerful, compelling way to think about reimagining our work and our processes going forward.
Dinesh, I want to bring you in here because what Ankur is describing is a lot of change management here. This is really big mindset shifts and new ways of working, not just new technologies and new gizmos we're bringing in here. Can you talk a little bit about the moment when you stepped in with Honeywell and how you worked hand in glove to make that achievable and practical?
Sure. I think the opportunity that we had to work with Honeywell was a marriage made in heaven. To put it in a phrase, what really appealed to us, Safi Bakal, in his book Loon Shots, he talks about any organization which is going through transformation, they are experiencing a phase change, which means what worked in a certain flow is not going to work in another flow. However, he's saying organizations which are really holding the dynamic equilibrium will be successful, right? Where they have a loon shot team and a franchisee team. What he means by that, there is a team which is driving massive transformation at scale, trying to automate everything faster, and then there's a team which is making sure efficiency is not dropping. Like flying a plane and also trying to fix it, right?
Quite literally.
Yeah. While you're trying to do that, that's where Quantiphi had this opportunity to come and play the role where we'll bring in AI capabilities and start building. But Honeywell, I should speak to it, they are extremely good in keeping efficiency parameters intact, right? They have a very strong team to run. They have legacy knowledge which is extremely powerful. That's why it became a really good recipe for success where we could come in, the team was ready to go. The efficiency parameters were all set on target, so we don't slip on it. Otherwise, AI efforts become POCs and then you don't see productive outcomes out of it.
You just talked about this tension between moving fast and getting things right, especially in an environment like Honeywell's. Can you describe a little bit about that tension and how you approached it and where you even decide to begin?
It took a lot of discovery. I think teams have to come together where, I know this is a lot of time said, but I think I saw that come to real live action, that there was no difference between an external vendor coming and helping. It was always from the beginning, from the top, it's one team, one goal, we have one mission to chase. They brought all of us together, and there was a lot of work. We brought in the how can we go fast is what we brought in, but they showed us what are the things we need to keep stable, right?
Because you don't want to introduce new risks.
Exactly, right? Like while we can talk about how we can automate a lot of things, but the second order and third order effects are really important for us to consider. I think that's where they have a really powerful dynamic team. We came together and we were able to deliver.
So Ankur, once you've made these changes, the next question becomes how do you measure success and progress, really? What do you see as your North Star, and how has AI shifted? What is really your focus and your priority?
I think when you think about industrial world in general, classically it has been spoken in terms of reliable engineering, reliable processes, which basically means consistency in how things get done, and driving reliable and consistent outcomes. And that becomes extremely important for us even in context of AI. And I define reliable AI in different forms. One, it has to be consistent, it has to be trustworthy, and it has to be transparent. And it is important to have all those three together in the mix in context of AI as well, because that's how experts believe that what AI is bringing to the table is actually usable, is actually I can start trusting and I can make my decisions consistently around that. And to me, that North Star becomes how do you make consistent, high quality decisions using AI, which of course drives the outcomes that we are trying to work towards. And the outcomes basically are in the industrial setting could be one, better asset performance and better utilization. It would be coming in the form of energy efficient operations. It would come in the form of safer operations versus what you traditionally have right now. And for each industrial setting, each of these different paradigms actually are important to influence on how you use AI to drive successful, consistent operations overall. And that becoming part of standard work of how domain experts start trusting those decisions with the AI mechanics is of course the win that we are after.
And it really builds on itself too. Here on this show we're talking about this idea of phi moments, this moment when something moves from experimentation, pilot, to something with real measurable business impact. I'm curious to hear from both of you with this Honeywell project, what that moment was for you and when you realized this was something that wasn't just promising, this is working and it's working at scale. Do you want to go for it first, Dinesh?
Sure. The moment for me which really stands out, like I said, this was never done before, so the journey we started, we came out. In theory, there are a lot of things we can do it, and it was laid out. Now we had to build a scaffolding on, which is a team that is going to support. We had to lay out the team. Then we had a massive, highly crunched time frame, I should say. We are not talking here in months and years, we are talking in weeks and days, right? We set a really tight target and it was few sprints to run. and the goal is to complete all our development within that time. And from that moment onwards, we are running sprints, massive, aggressive run. While we were going through, in the middle of the sprint, when I saw the outcomes, that was the phi moment for me to say, this is actually possible and we can do it. And that belief also kind of changed everybody. Once we completed the development cycle, then we looked at it and said, we made a big change. We've not crossed the finish line yet, but this gave us a lot of confidence to say, we are on the right track, right?
And before I hear your phi moment, what did that do to the human beings who were working on this and being able to see that progress? How did it change the way they worked and how they felt about the work?
Great question, right? In fact, he spoke about trust, right? Trust grows over time, but it also grows over results. Once you start tasting those smaller victories that you see, we've laid a plan, yes, it's going to be months to journey, but you want to see those smaller victories, even the way we planned the project, that we were able to experience those smaller victories. And that automatically, even the ones there were believers, of course, who are running in front, and there are others who are walking along and saying, I'm still not sure, AI, I'm not sure how it's going to work, etc. But the more they see that it's bringing consistency, it's helping me to have better explainability, and it's eliminating a lot of complexity that will be introduced due to human decisions. Those are all streamlined right now. When that happens, it turns out to be something that everybody wants to be part of this journey.
It's making their lives easier and it's motivating too. How about you, Ankur? What was your phi moment?
I think for us, it's the customer outcomes that matter. And that's critical. When you give that aha moment to the customers, that, oh, actually this works, oh, this makes sense. Oh, I did not have this before, we actually did all these transformations and things like that. That's basically the winning moment that you want to take back to the team who's actually putting in a lot of effort to bring these new technologies together in a complex legacy environment and still put a new aha moment in front of the customer. That is extremely satisfying, and that's the win that we are all after.
As we hear right now, I'm curious to hear from you, Ankur, what still feels unfinished in terms of looking ahead and moving forward into more AI ways of working?
I think we are scratching the surface, on what AI can do in different walks of life in our portfolio of processes that we support today. I call this intelligence neural network that we are trying to create here. We are just creating nodes of intelligence at this point in time. But eventually this has to become a network for the system to start behaving intelligently and sometimes even independently to drive some of these process outcomes and process operations right now. And there's a lot of work to be done to make sure, one, as we build those nodes of intelligence, we are intelligently connecting them as well and stimulating their action based on the right triggers and the sensory parts that we have there of right now. Each will come with its own form of challenge, a different level of complexity, a different level of context or environment for us to deal with differently, and I think there is a lot to be done in that space.
As we're nearing the end of the conversation, let's talk best practices, particularly for executives who are watching this and also dealing with their own complex legacy spaghetti, and perhaps a skeptical leadership team. What's your best advice for where they should turn first and the first moves that they should make? Dinesh?
Sure. They normally say most of the things that are really fruitful are common sense, right? I'll start with a common sense point. Always keep in mind, start with the process. The first part, you need to really think about it. Sometimes organizations get into a mode of, okay, let me use AI to recreate all the process that I have, right? That's a recipe for failure. The whole idea behind bringing it's not just introducing AI as a tool, but you're doing process re-engineering. I think Ankur spoke to it in the beginning when he was hinting about it. So rethink about your process. Number two, your teams have to be restructured too, in a way that will support. You need to have a team which carries that that dynamic equilibrium of having focus on acceleration and focus on keeping the ship sturdy. And those same teams cannot do, but you need to structure the whole organization in a way that both are working hand in hand. So that's how you can gain capacity, and this is a great time for people to lean in, and leaders, they play an important role, that they step up to the plate and keep driving that message top down. I think those are the things I'll leave as thought.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you?
Don't start with technology, start with the problem to solve. I think that's a very important one. Don't pick up a massive problem, At the same time, pick a right size problem that you want to go after and chase, because there is a critical mass that you want behind this to make this successful and just make this work. Lastly, look for crisis opportunities. Crisis has huge amount of power in that, and that's when you get a lot of contribution from the ecosystem and the organization to support you towards solving that problem. And those are fundamental moments that you want to look after to see how do you drive or impact that change right now. So if you want to start tomorrow, Monday, on what you want to go after, pick a meaningful problem to solve. Don't make it a massive transformation project. Get those wins, incremental wins in place, and logically tie them out to, of course, drive the transformation and success.
And we don't wish for a crisis, but we also don't want to waste a crisis, because there are lots of learning opportunities in that too.
Yep.
Well, Dinesh and Ankur, thank you so much. This was a really interesting conversation, great insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Rebecca Knight. Stay tuned for more of theCUBE's live coverage of Phi Moments here at Google Cloud Next. You're watching theCUBE, the leader in enterprise tech news and analysis.